Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. Welcome to the Sunday chat, the only video remaining on the channel that looks like the old videos by design. If you're new to the channel, welcome. And a word of explanation, the Sunday video is different. It is what it says in the name, it's a chatty video, so don't expect to see lots of orchids and things like that. But this week I'm doing a repot in the Sunday chat, and it'll be on the end, so you could either have to skip or wait till the end. Yes, it was going to be a separate video, but I've decided to incorporate it into the Sunday chat. So there'll be a bit of camera shuffling around in a minute to get it in the right place for my repotting bench over there. Right, well, it's been a funny old week. It's not exactly been an orchid week. Orchid videos have been thin on the ground. There was a very good reason for this. I got given a load of timber, and I've always wanted to make some individual display stands for some of my better bonsai trees, so I took advantage of that. I'm aware that sorry, there's a bird on the roof out of the corner of my eye. I'm aware that there are people who only tune in for the Sunday chat, so they might not have seen what's been going on. But basically the timber was put to good use. Took it up to my son's place. He's got access to a woodworking workshop where we cut all the timber to size, drilled the holes and everything, so everything was ready to sort of get on, and I turned this place into a workshop effectively so that I could put a couple of coats of stain on all the bits and pieces, put them together, and they are now outside in the garden with some bonsai trees sat on them. And as a consequence of changing the bonsai round, because I've changed some other things, there is a full bonsai update video on my other channel, Roger's Garden and Bonsai. So if you're interested in seeing the stands that I made with their trees, they're on the other channel. There's a full update on there. While we're on the subject of the other channel, quite a few things have changed in the garden. Things have moved on, some things have gone over, things have grown. So tomorrow, I've already filmed it, I filmed it yesterday. Tomorrow there will be a full garden update on Roger's Garden and Bonsai channel. Literally where I go around all the plants, the shrubs, you know, the whole sort of thing, and have a look at how things are doing, you know, what's new, what's coming on, all that sort of thing. So it's a complete garden update, and that will be on that channel sometime tomorrow when I get round to it, because tomorrow I've got my MOT for the car, which is always, I don't know, it's stressful, and it shouldn't be. I mean, they're not going to condemn the car, it's not going to get written off or anything silly like that. It's just, we always get a bit frantic about a car going in for an MOT, and I've realised it's nothing to do with what they might find wrong or anything like that. It's the cost of putting it right. The actual MOT itself doesn't cost much, you know, considering there's all sorts of electronic equipment involved that the people doing the MOT have to purchase and own and everything, plus the direct link to the DVLA, update all the system details and everything, so that policeman Plod can use his little gadget and say, oh, that car's got an MOT. Nick, 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 nick. Yes, so MOT tomorrow. Well, as I say, strictly speaking, all I've got to do is drive the car there and get the bus home, and then sit here and wait for the dreaded phone call later in the day that either says it's passed or it hasn't, and if it hasn't, what it's going to cost to do whatever repairs are required. So I've got that tomorrow. I hate that. And it's not in a good month as well, because the end of this month my rent's due. Some bright spark, thanks for this, said, please, please, please take your viewers to the Chelsea Flower Show. What, do you want to pay for it? I'm not paying out that sort of money to go to a show like that. First of all, it's in London, and I don't like going into London. especially driving into London, and that whole area of London for about 3 or 4 miles in every direction. There won't be a single parking space. Everywhere will be full. There'll be tailbacks at every roundabout and every set of lights with people struggling to get about. You know, I'm not doing it. Plus it's 40 quid for a ticket to get in on the public days. And then there's, if you can get somewhere to park in London, it's the cost of that. Then you're going to want something to eat. And then there's the fuel. So like I say, if you want to foot the bill, then I'll send you an invoice. So no, I'm not going to Chelsea Flower Show. Do you know, I've only ever been once, and that was so long ago that you could take the bridge across the river, and the road alongside the river you could park for free. That shows how long ago that was. There's virtually no free parking in London. It's all yellow lines. Some places it's red lines. You look that up. It basically means in a very short space of time your car could be on a trailer and taken to the pound. It's not just a parking offence, it's a blocking the road offence, so red lines. Yeah, so we won't be doing that. Yes, so this week has been getting that bonsai staging sorted out, and it's nice. It's a nice feeling when you've got what is quite a large project. I mean, I've had no training in woodworking or anything like that, to be able to you know, mark out stuff and help get it all cut to size and everything, and you know, take on a project like that, which is a little bit daunting, and put this place here into chaos for the week. But it's nice to get it done. So you plan it, you do it, and it goes to plan, and it didn't take too long, and it's over and done with. The only thing left to do in here is clean the spots off the floor, which last time I did some staining in here with that same stain, the spots come off the floor very easily with a damp cloth. Just give them a rub, allow the moisture to sort of get in underneath, and then they just come off. So there's that. What else? As a consequence of the bonsai staging being sorted out, you might be able to see it just outside the door, but the staging that some of the bonsai were on is now freed up, and that's going to be the staging for the Cymbidium plants. That little mini project, because that's all it is, a mini project. I'll show you what's involved. Just put the coffee down. We've got 4 little feet which are going to get screwed onto the bottom of the legs of the staging. Why do we need feet on the bottom of the staging? Because the timber is 2 by 1 inches now. We've gone back to, you know, ancient times and gone all what was it before metric? I forgot, this so long ago. Oh, this word's gone. Anyway, 2 holes so that those little feet, when they've been stained, can go on the bottom of each leg. So there's 4 of those. And the reason I need those is that on the bottom of each leg we're going to have a nice caster, so that the staging can be wheeled around. Now 2 of the wheels have got brakes on, so that when I put it where it needs to go. But the reason I needed the little feet was those holes don't line up with a 2 by 1 piece of timber, but they will fit on the bottom of those little feet quite nicely. Yeah? So that's the logic. And I knew I was getting these, and I knew the dimensions of the foot plate basically, and these little feet were cut to size so that they'll fit on there nicely. So that's a little mini project to get those coated up. I've got a nice idea for these. I'm going to put a screw in the hole like that so that I can hold them with the screw, and then I can paint all of it, both sides, the edges, the whole lot like that, and then use the screw to tie a bit of string on, and then it can just hang from one of these shelves until it's dry. Yeah? so I don't have to put it down anywhere and I don't have to touch it once I've put the last little brush stroke on. But I'll be holding it with the screw, so I'll be able to turn it. So little mini project to get those feet coated up and then get those screwed to the bottom of the staging and then get the wheels screwed to the bottom of that. And then we have our staging ready for our Cymbidiums, and I would think by then our night temperatures and everything are going to be such that I'm probably not going to bother trying to harden them off. I mean, the night temperatures, they're only going down to 12 or 13 degrees. It goes down to 15 in here. It's only 2 degrees difference. So I'm not going to bother with the putting them out, bringing them in, putting them out, bringing them in. I'm just going to put them out there and they'll have to fend for themselves. So that's this week's little project, but that is orchid related obviously, so it's an orchid thing. Now as far as the channels with an S on the end is concerned, thanks to everybody who supports either one, the other, or preferably both. By support, we've got financial support, which includes watching the adverts. That is a way of turning over YouTube and extracting some money out of a tight lot. But yeah, that's how the revenue changes hands on YouTube. That's how the creators who do all the work, think up the ideas, do all the work, do the filming, do the editing, do the posting, and then managing it after it's been posted by dealing with the comments. Those good people, without those there wouldn't be anything on YouTube, would there? So are they the important people? Yes. Do they get paid well by YouTube? No. YouTube just grab as much as they can. It is a business after all, I suppose, but yeah. That's how the money changes hands. The advertisers pay vast sums of money for their adverts to be placed on videos, and then as people watch the videos, those adverts are seen and possibly some goods are purchased. I don't know anyone who's ever bought anything from a YouTube advert. I certainly haven't. Anyway, that's how the money changes hands. When the adverts are watched, yeah, YouTube parts with some of its money and sends it off to the creators once a month. So watching the adverts is financial support. You might not have realised that, but it is. Other types of financial support, we've got the YouTube membership, which I don't push it because YouTube takes such a large chunk of it. It's not a very efficient way of making a donation to help with the channel. Help with the channel financially is to help get new orchids in, replace kit as and when, and work in the garden, all that sort of stuff. So that's what it's for. It doesn't go in Roger's wine fund. That has to be funded separately. It gets put back into the business, the orchid business mainly. Yeah. And there's also the patron site. Now that's a much more efficient way of making a donation. Works the same way. Once a month your donation is taken off your card, I think, something like that. It does a run on the first of the month, and yes, you make a donation on a regular monthly basis. But on the Patreon site, they take something like 12%. YouTube take 31%. It's a vast difference, and that would be for exactly the same donation. Yeah, so you think of the difference. So the Patreon site is a much better way of doing it, which is why I push it a bit harder. The one thing I will say though, if you become a member on this channel, you don't get perks. I don't do them. If I had a few hundred members, I would gladly make some members only type videos and perhaps do some members only live chats and things, if I had the members. I think I've got 10, The Patreon site gets this video, the Sunday chat video, early, so it's an earlier posting. You get to see this video earlier on the Patreon site, and there are no adverts. So one of the few places you can watch a YouTube video and not keep getting interrupted. That's what it's all about as far as I'm concerned. No ads, no adverts. So there we go, that's that. But thanks for the support in whatever shape or form. Say just watching the videos, leaving comments. And a reminder comes now, don't forget the thumbs up. Might seem superfluous and what's the point of that? It doesn't do anything. Actually it does. It sets YouTube on a path. So if a video gets, say, 1,000 views and only gets 10 thumbs up, YouTube have assumed that was a pretty naff video. However, if a video got 1,000 views and it got 950 thumbs up, YouTube would go, that wasn't a bad video, we'll keep our eye on that channel, perhaps push it a bit higher up in the search results, seems to be doing okay. Yeah, so they are important, the thumbs up. Have you done it? Oh, do it now. I'm watching. Seriously though, it costs nothing and it does help the channel. Right, that's all that out of the way. I only ever do that waffle to do with that on Sundays. I'm not doing it on every video like some do. I find it a little annoying when I've watched several videos from the same channel and I've had to listen to that every time, so I don't do it. I try not to do things that annoy me because the chances are they're probably going to annoy some of my viewers, so you know. Once a week is when we do it and that's it. Right, I've got no new blooms to show you, but I will re-show that bloom over there simply because in the video I showed it when it first opened, it was all tangled up with doing all this staining and getting the bonsai staging sorted out, and some people as a consequence may have just not watched that video, so we will have another look at that because it is pretty stunning, and then we'll get on with the repot before I forget. Let me just move the camera a bit because it's right in the way, typical. That's called not planning ahead. And then we'll get the pot down. This has got a really long sticky out leaf that has to go, this thing has to be guided between two other pots so that this can sit on the edge of the shelf. But this is what we're on about. This is the bloom that came out during the week. This one, I can't remember whether I bought it in bloom, but I'm pretty sure it's bloomed before. I think I might have bought it in bloom, I can't remember. But this is, you know, my new growth and my bloom. Very, very attractive bloom, unusual set of colours. Hopefully that's in focus. This little thing here is a dormant bud that may never do anything, but if there's enough strength in the plant, and there probably isn't in this one, this is a small division, what will happen is as this bloom starts to fade, they last a long time, but as it starts to fade it will trigger this bulb, this bud to start into growth, and it will start to swell, and with a gap between the two this one can come out and follow on like a sequential blooming, but it doesn't always happen, and not all spikes will have that little bud either. Very rarely you might get 3, but most of the time you get 1. Anyway, that's it. And on the bottom of the pot is a slug. Which is an X-slug. I wonder what that's been eating. It's probably been eating the ends off my roots as it was underneath the pot. Well, I'm glad we found that. Right, so let me just tuck that back in where it goes, because that's a delicate operation. Try not to knock anything over or damage any leaves. But I've put it up on the end of that shelf there. That's where all my coleogenes are, they're all together. Last time I rearranged things in here, we ended up with some groups of plants by genus. All my odonts are on a single shelf. There's a couple of oddities on that shelf as well, but they're all on one shelf. And all the coleogenes went on one shelf as well. I can't say the same for the rest because there's either only one or two of them or far too many to get on one shelf. But yeah. So anyway, let's have a session, a repot session. Now this is not just going to be a repot, it's technically it is a how-to repot a Phalaenopsis orchid. I will join the thousands and thousands of other YouTube videos showing how to repot a Phalaenopsis orchid. But I bet it won't be one of these orchids. Let me explain. There is a nursery not far from here. It's about 5, maybe 6 miles away, called Double H. When I used to work for the car hire company, they were a customer. They often used to hire vehicles to take samples off to, various places. And then I'd have to deliver the car and then go and collect it when they finished with it, sort of thing. And so I got to look around the place a couple of times. It is a wholesale nursery and is trade only, so you can't buy. But a while ago we had this horrible nasty thing called the pandemic. And when you're a wholesale business and you're not allowed out to go and see your customers and you can't make deliveries, you go broke. But they decided to set up a sideline business online, and that gets round the problem. And it took off, and it ended up getting its own name, and it's called Love Orchids. So you can search for loveorchids.co.uk and you will come across it. It's Phalaenopsis only, but some people only grow Phalaenopsis. Some people can only grow Phalaenopsis. Some people can't grow them to save their life. That's another story. But yeah, so it's their online shop is for Phalaenopsis only, and it varies from quite spectacular presentations, containers with multiple orchids in, right down to the basic unit where you can't buy an orchid. I think the minimum you can buy is 4. But 4 double-stemmed, in bloom, Phalaenopsis orchids for 40 quid and free postage. That makes those plants 10 quid each. And they are quality plants. Now we'll go and have a look at one. It also says in their guidelines they've got a frequently asked questions, and one of the questions is, do I need to repot my orchid? And they've emphatically said no. Let's have a look and see. I'm repotting it because of, I like to repot orchids and put them in the media. Sorry, you're going to get wobbled around a bit while I get the camera in its new position for repotting, which is right up on the end of this bench. Somewhere about there. Right, then we will drop this down. Looks about right, something like that. Let me have a look. Yeah, that looks about right. Right, now, first of all, forget that. Yeah? What happened was at our 50th show, we ordered some of these. We ordered, I think it was 50 or 60 mini Phalaenopsis from Burnham's nursery, and they were to give away free. But so that we could make a decent Phalaenopsis display, we also ordered some of the larger Phalaenopsis from Double H, and very accommodating. And as I said, they now have an online side to the business. But so these are UK grown, mass produced Phalaenopsis. There's pictures of the the grow areas and everything like that on their website. I'm not getting anything for this. They're not giving me a backhander. I never thought to ask. Anyway, how to repot a Phalaenopsis orchid. Now I've already decided what pot it's going to go in. I've got my bark, I've got my sterilised scissors. They got flamed this time, so they're sterile. And well, let's just have a look at the orchid. First of all, it did have 2 spikes, but the other spike, the blooms went over a while ago, and this spike was still in bloom, so it stayed on. But the blooms dropped, the last 2 or 3 blooms dropped overnight. So when I came down in the morning, it was bloomless, and it exposed a couple of little items. Now these items you won't see very often unless it's quite a strong plant. Hidden behind those blooms was an extension to the spike, complete with buds. And then on closer inspection, farther down the spike is another side shoot. So I've left that spike on. Now I wouldn't normally leave a spike on a Phalaenopsis. I'm not too happy with the kink that you get often. You know, like here. If this side shoot had been produced by cutting the spike, it's going to be at an angle, isn't it? It's going to come out like, and it doesn't look that attractive. But you can position the plant in such a way that once the blooms come out, it doesn't really show anymore. So, right, first thing, if you're going to repot a Phalaenopsis with a spike, with or without blooms, I will give you a warning shot. I've never had a problem repotting a Phalaenopsis with blooms on. However, I have had a problem repotting a Phalaenopsis with buds on, and they can blast very easily. So if your plant's still in bud, or still has quite a few buds on it, I would suggest you at least wait until they open, because they can blast. Anyway, what have we got then? This is going to be quite different from the mass-produced Phalaenopsis that you might get from the rest of Europe. There's a root hanging on here, don't want to let go. There we go. Right, so first of all, what's it potted in? It's a mix of bark and coconut chunks. Anything else in there? No. That's not a bad mix for a Phalaenopsis. Has it got a plug in the middle? Yes. Is that plug sphagnum moss? No. It's whatever that is. And tell you the truth, I don't know what that is, but it's fibrous, and it's obviously something that they can purchase without spending much money, and it's safe, relatively, to leave in there, because that's not broken down. And it actually has no smell, whereas this does. That is a bit mushroomy. So, how much work are we going to have to do on this? How many manky old rotten roots are we going to have to cut off? Can you see any yet? Right, so we do have growing tip here, here, and a couple of others. So we've got some growing roots. We haven't got a shed load of aerial roots. So I've just found a really manky root that needs to come off. Where are the manky roots? They're in the centre of the plant. Yeah? That's where you'd expect them to be. They were in that plug. so they can just all come off quite simply. That got the lot. Oops, missed one there, and one there. Quite honestly with this, if I had a root that I doubted, you know, I thought, that one looks a bit iffy, I'd just take it off. On the grounds there are so many here that, you know, if you took off one too many, it's not exactly the end of the world. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. So those few roots are all that I can see that needed taking off. And the rest can stay as they are. There's a little stub there that I will get. And that'll do. So not much of a clean-up, and not a pile of rotten roots like you often get. But on closer inspection, this root has had it. So even though it's green and it sort of looks okay, it's not. It was the fact that it was misshapen gave it away. So that will do. Now, I could reuse that pot, there's nothing wrong with it, but that puts me off. The plant passport is printed on the pot, as opposed to it being a sticky thing. Don't like that. Don't like that at all. Right, I'm just going to move that to one side. I'm not going to worry about it this particular time. And this is the pot it's going in. It's not full of holes because it's necessarily required to pot the Phalaenopsis in a pot full of holes. It just happened to be the only pot I've got in here that's exactly the same size as the one I've just taken it out of, which is what I wanted. So the fact that it's got holes in could be a bonus, more air, yeah. But and this is just going in bark, so it's a little bit of a change. So some in the bottom. Hopefully these roots will all go in. Well, that was a strange statement because they are going in by hook or by crook. I'm gently teasing them in. As I said, they are going to go in, all of them. And the few that were sticking out the top of the pot before will still be sticking out of the pot afterwards. Make sure my plant is in the middle of the pot and make sure it's upright. And then all I'm going to do is drop bark on the top edge and bang it. Notice my plant is dry and so is my bark. If my plant had been soaking prior to doing this, this bark would stick like mad to all of the roots and I'd have a hell of a job getting it to drop down into all the air spaces. So this plant deliberately didn't get watered last time I watered my Phalaenopsis. And the other reason it didn't get watered was because of the cocoa chunks mixed in with the bark. It was staying wet longer than my other Phalaenopsis that are just in bark. So it was also on a different watering cycle, which was a bit of a nuisance. But you know, we manage these things, don't we? But now that it's in its the same bark as the rest of them, after a relatively short while, this bark, the surface on this bark, will start to give in and allow it to hold some water, which it doesn't hold much water at all when it's new, this bark. So if you're going to repot, make sure you've got enough media. Don't go halfway up the pot and run out. Make sure it's suitable, and quite honestly, these mass-produced type Phalaenopsis hybrids, these are not species, do very well in bark chunks. very well indeed. You can try other stuff if you want, and you can try inorganic. There was a mad craze going back a while where everybody was standing them in a glass of water with the root tips in the water. That craze died out. The trouble was that lots of people actually set up channels specifically and gave it a name, water culture, and it was the trendy thing to have a go at, and loads of people jumped on the bandwagon. But then when you started asking around, you couldn't find many people that had actual orchids growing like that and still being around 3 or 4 years later. They didn't seem to last as well as they might do in a more traditional media. Right, how often should a Phalaenopsis be repotted? When it needs to be. Now this one won't need repotting for 3, probably 4 years, because the bark won't be breaking down and there's nothing else in there that will be breaking down, so it should last well. Now I'm going to see if I can get the stake back in. Yeah, it might not be as easy as it sounds, but we will try. It might go down the side of the pot, somewhere near where it was before. Yeah, there we go. And then we can use that clip in that position. God, these clips are fiddly, to say the least, but they work. So we've got one lower down and then we'll have another one higher up near the top. There we go. Right, so that will get a really good watering now on the grounds it's dry. There are some air gaps. I don't care. Not with a Phalaenopsis. You often find that the new roots will grow into those spaces, but they like air around their roots. Now, temperatures. If you are growing your mass-produced Phalaenopsis in warm temperatures, where they would like to be somewhere between 26 and 28 degrees during the day, if you can do that, then this media is not much good, because it'll keep drying out really, really fast through evaporation because of those temperatures, and the plant using it up, because the plant's metabolism will be much faster with those sort of temperatures. So you would need something that held more moisture. Most of the people in the UK are not going to have those sort of temperatures. They're going to be more like me. This is going to live on the kitchen windowsill. We've got a warm day today. Outside it's about 22, 23 degrees. And some people are going, huh, you call that warm? I'd have to have my coat on. Yeah, well, different countries and all that. But nonetheless, I suppose the average daytime temperature through the summer months during the daytime in my kitchen is 21, 22, maybe 23, not 26 to 28. So it hasn't got the higher temperatures. So it won't use moisture through the plant at a similar rate to those higher temperatures. So it will be working slower, yeah? So it won't be using up the moisture in the... sorry, I don't like that root's coming off. Yeah, so it won't be using up the water in the pot as quickly. And if it's not using it up as quickly, the pot won't dry out as quickly. So there's another one I don't like there. Yeah, so as far as I'm concerned, that's a perfectly fine repotted Phalaenopsis, store-bought, so-called, mass-produced, yes, hybrid Phalaenopsis. And don't forget, these have been bred to have the fussiness taken out of them, so the temperature range is not quite so critical. But they still don't like to get cold, so go steady, don't let them get cold. I mean, mine drop down to a temperature in the winter overnight that they don't like, but tough. You know, I'm not heating the kitchen just for whatever it is, 8 plants. So there we go, a Phalaenopsis repot. A good opportunity If you've got any questions about repotting Phalaenopsis, drop them in the comments on this video. As I said, I am aware that some people only ever watch the Sunday chat. Normally you wouldn't get a repot, but I wanted to get this done, and I wanted to film it, and I don't do YouTube videos for the Orchid Channel on Mondays. It's my day off, and I just wanted to get on with this. Mainly because the plant was dry and I wanted to get it wet again. So I wanted to do the repot because I don't like repotting wet plants. So there we go. This will get watered with some seaweed. Some people add CalMag in for their initial watering. Some people give their plants a soak in CalMag and or seaweed extract. But seaweed extract has a calming effect, because some repots are a major disturbance to the plant. It's quite a shock. That's not a major shock to the plant, not really. We haven't taken many roots off. Most of the roots that came off weren't really functioning anyway, so it's not going to miss them. And it's gone back in a media that's suitable for the plant, so it should be fine. And it should get going a bit now. See, now what are you doing? Phalaenopsis, their spikes come from down the plant. And when you get one, have a count. That's a relatively new leaf. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's a spike. So on this plant, there are 4 leaves above that spike and 5 leaves above the one below. So 4 or 5 leaves, yeah? That joint, the monopodial orchid, so single stem up the middle jobby, that joint won't produce another spike, yeah? So where's the next spike going to come from? Well, it's probably going to come from here. And how many leaves are above it? 3. So chances are this is not going to bloom again until it grows another leaf. Maybe even needs 2 leaves, because it's lost its best temperatures that it would have had in the nursery, yeah? So it might not be in such good health as it once was because of the conditions, so it might not readily bloom at the rate it was before. These plants from Double H are probably only about 2 to 3 years old, and with 2 huge spikes, yeah? So they've been grown in perfect conditions basically. They're artificially lit to give them the right day length, they've got the right temperature, they've got the right humidity, and they get the trade feed, yeah? And they really do know how to feed the orchids. They've been practicing a long time, and they won't tell you what they use. It will be made. They will buy the elements in, I suspect, and probably mix their own. They might just buy a, oil drum full of the stuff ready made. I don't know. But anyway, Phalaenopsis orchids are not a big deal. The big deal is growing them in the wrong conditions in the main. And I suspect the majority of Phalaenopsis die because the roots have drowned, because they're too wet. Now, this media here could easily be too wet. It's fibrous, in some of it is fibrous. There is some quite hard bark in there as well. But this cocoa fibre stuff holds moisture, and it holds quite a bit. It's like a sponge. And a lot of people, they've got house plants, and they sort of water their house plants Sunday morning. Let's do the house plants, and they do their Phalaenopsis orchid at the same time. Well, it might not have dried out from the last lot of water that was thrown on it, so it's still wet. And you're going to make it wetter. These need a wet-dry cycle. Now, when they're actively growing, if they're growing well and they're pushing leaves and new roots, it pays not to let them go totally dry, just off. You need to get to know your plant. Like, let's say it takes 10 days to dry out. It might only take 4, but whatever, yeah? You get to know your plant and your temperature ranges. It's all very well saying, oh, if it stays wet for 10 days, you can't get enough feed into them because you can only water them once every 10 days. Well, if you haven't got your temperatures and everything and it's not using that water up, you can't keep chucking it in there if the plant's going to stay wet. Yeah? You could try inorganic media, stuff like leca and stuff like that. I don't get on with it, I don't like it, and in this grow room I'm happy with either bark and perlite, and moss. Those are my three options, and there are a few orchids that are just in sphagnum moss. Those are mainly Dendrobium kikis that have been removed from the mother plant and are getting a nice root system going and everything. They'll be eased out of that and put in a more traditional media. But as far as Phalaenopsis orchids are concerned, they do well in bark. And providing you don't let the bark start to break down and use rubbish quality, which will mean it'll break down a lot quicker, you shouldn't need to repot that often, which means you'll get a good established root system. And don't let it rot. Just don't keep it wet. Let it dry off. And the higher your temperatures, the faster that cycle will happen. And like I said, in a perfect world, 26, 28 degrees, this media would be dry probably in 3 days. So I could water and feed every 3 days if I had those temperatures. I haven't, so I can't and I don't. It's all geared up to work into your own environment, and my environment has not got high temperatures. Since I moved here, I just don't get those temperatures that I used to get during the day in the summer months. We don't get them. So there we go. I'm going to put that label back in even though it's meaningless. What does it say on it? Moth orchid. Shade from direct sun in summer. Water sparingly. So that's the expression they use, water sparingly. I would say in bark, give it a flipping good soak and then let it head towards almost dry. And then it says warm, minimum 15, and then on the next line it says 24. But there is a full stop there. Anyway, perfect conditions, daytime 26, 28 degrees, you can go a bit higher than that, but it doesn't need to. And proper day lengths for those temperatures, so you know, a good 12 to 14 hours at those temperatures will keep them growing actively throughout the year. Nighttime temperatures during growth periods, you can come down 4 or 5 degrees, yeah, so head down towards the 21, 22 mark, keep the thing growing, keep it comfortable. But then most of these get a cool, so when they get to the right size with the right number of leaves and they're expected to spike, what they will do then is move them to another area where they actually get lower temperatures. So instead of 26 to 28, they'll come right down to 21, 22 daytime and drop down even further at night down to 17, 18. And that triggers the plant to spike. These type, it won't do it for everything, but for these type, that's the trigger. And it's been bred into them. It's part of their makeup now, you know. So there we go. And as this was the Sunday chat, thanks for being here. As usual, it's a long one. How long actually is it? Oh, coming up to 50 minutes, it says on the camera. That is a long video for YouTube, so hope you've enjoyed it. And it's obviously been lengthened by adding a repot in. But yeah, we've finished with the bonsai staging now, so that's over and done with. The project has ended. The Cymbidium staging project is underway because I've freed up the staging. I've just got to do the feet and put the wheels on, and then the Cymbidiums will be outside and can get a little drop of early morning sunshine for a few hours and then be wheeled into a place where they won't get that sunshine. No midday sun for them. It'll turn the leaves yellow basically. And this year my Cymbidiums are going to get watered and fed properly as orchids, not as garden plants. Because last year I just kept putting a hose on them. So one, they were getting tap water, which is not ideal. Well, certainly my tap water isn't. My tap water has a parts per million between 300 and 400. and that's without any feed in it. That's just the water. So we don't use it. In emergencies, I've actually used the water out of my Brita jug, which is a carbon charcoal based filtered water. So it gets rid of all the heavy metals and stuff like that, and takes a lot of the hardness out of the water as well, so it softens it a bit, not by using salts. And it brings it down to about 160, 170. Now in an emergency I would happily use that, but I probably wouldn't add any feed to it for the orchids in here, but for Cymbidiums I would. But I'm going to try and make sure I use the RO water with proper mixed up orchid feed for the Cymbidiums this year. Let's get some stonking bulbs and some really good spikes with some lovely large blooms, the right colour. There's a story there. Hope you've been following it. Anyway, thanks for dropping by, and no YouTube videos on the Orchid Channel tomorrow, but don't forget I will be loading the full garden update on Roger's Garden and Bonsai, the other channel that I run, and that'll get loaded tomorrow morning sometime. So there will be a Roger's video tomorrow, just not on this channel. And then for the rest of the week, I haven't got a clue what I'll be up to. But we shall see. I'm sure something will turn up, as they say. And thanks for dropping by. See you next time.